does Milton start writing poetry? And it seemed that you alluded to the position that maybe he was ambitious, an ambitious poet.
Hmm.
Did he start? How did that develop?
Well, I mean, he's writing. I mean, so his first volume of poems is published in 1645, but he's been writing poetry at least since he was a teenager. So some of the poems in the 1645 poems, including actually two translations of two psalms, are both he writes above them, done when I was at the age of 15. So he's very careful to actually put his age onto a lot of these poems. So the reader gets a sense of his early virtuosity as a teenage poet. And he's very careful to kind of present a development of his poetic talents through his childhood. The one thing about Milton, and any reader of Milton, will immediately see this, is that he has a very sort of dominating personality, and it's very hard to escape. And this can be a problem for students of Milton these days, who find this kind of personality somewhat terrifying, or find it somehow off-putting. Is that he's almost supernaturally sure of himself, that he is destined to become, if he makes the right moves, he is destined to become the great English poet, and will write the great national epic to stand alongside Homer in Greek and Virgil in Latin. And of course he does do this. So that's the remarkable thing. It's the most amazing sort of claim ever made, because he does actually succeed in doing this with Paradise Lost, his great Christian epic. And he does have moments of doubt. He has. I mean, in the book, I spent quite a lot of time on his letters to friends, because sometimes he presents himself as a kind of almost isolated prophetic figure. But that's not the case when he was young. He had several very close friends, and they talked intently about classical literature and about the writing and poetry. And he does have moments in those letters where he's worried that he's not fulfilling fast enough the poetic ambitions that he set himself. But for the most part, what's amazing about Milton is that he is so sure of himself from an early age, and he's absolutely saturated in Latin and Greek poetry. He also learns Italian, writes poetry in Italian as a young man. He also, I would suggest, we'll maybe come to this also, he seems to have learned some Hebrew, either from tutors or at school, and translates directly from the Psalms, from Hebrew into Greek and from Hebrew into English. So his life is really one of his early life is one of becoming a kind of virtuoso intellectual and poet, who reads as widely as he can, learns as many languages as he can, to make himself into the great epic poet that he eventually sees himself becoming. And in this respect, he's very much in line with humanist ideas about literature and language in the Renaissance, and the idea that by developing eloquence and poetic eloquence, one becomes a better person. There's a very strong link in Renaissance humanism between eloquence, rhetoric, and morality. And it fits with Protestant ideas of encountering the Bible through the original languages as well. So yeah, Milton is absolutely suffused with that. In many ways, he's perhaps the last great example of a Renaissance man, someone who tries to encompass all the disciplines, or as many languages as he can, to turn himself into one of the great poets of his age.